Now, let's bring in my panel because there's not just one person, not just two people, not just three. I've got people here on tonight who will call out this insanity, starting with my brilliant panel, Ian Plimer, the great geologist, Spectator columnist James McPherson, and of course, women's rights advocate Catherine Deeves. Great to see you all. So, Ian, let's talk nuclear first of all, despite what Chris Bowen might be saying, that there's no way Australia could ever go nuclear. No, it's all too expensive. Well, I'll be talking later in the show about Greta's conversion to nuclear, but the Financial Review, excellent editorial today, coming out in favour of lifting the ban on nuclear. Ian, this is long overdue, isn't it?
Well, we're already a nuclear nation. We've had 2 reactors in this country, and they've been in operation for more than 60 years. I would be the only person would ever appear on your program who has used one of these reactors. I've used the Opal reactor for neutron activation analysis. Now, this method is used to do very detailed analysis of environmental toxins. You cannot do it any other way. Anyone who's ever had cancer has to be a supporter of Australia's Opal reactor because medical isotopes come from this. We already have the foundations for a massive reactor at Jervis Bay on Commonwealth territory. And we had in the past plans for reactors on Flinders Island, in the coalfields, the Hunter and the Bowen Basin. And of course, Collie in Western Australia would be a place for it. So this is absolute madness. We sell yellow cake to countries that actually have nuclear power. We have a huge amount of yellow cake that can be produced in this country. We already have the skills for putting nuclear reactors and to keep the lights on. We are absolutely ideologically ignoring the obvious. And the obvious is we are a nuclear nation. We have the skills. We have a very small 20-watt, megawatt reactor at Lucas Heights. When I was a kid, we used to go on school excursions there and visit this reactor in the bush. Now suburbia has encroached on it. But we have to have that reactor where it is, because we create medical isotopes that last a very short time. We've got to be able to get them to an airport, on a plane, to Broome, Darwin or the Pacific Islands very, very quickly. So we already have the skills. If we put reactors where we have existing coal-fired power stations, we don't even have to spend a fortune on infrastructure.
Well, I think that's a great point, Catherine. We don't need to have nuclear reactors on the northern beaches, which I'm sure Chris Bowen would be his scare campaign. I mean, we're going to have windmills on the northern beaches, so, why not nuclear reactors? I'm just joking. What's your thoughts on the Financial Review? So they've turned around, and so this is centre-left of Australia. Who'd have thought only a year or two ago you would never have had this debate?
Well, I fully support it. I find it rather embarrassing that Australia has such rich resources of uranium and we are falling behind so many other developed nations. And it was something that I spoke about during the election. I was on a panel with Zali Steggall and Shoebridge and they were banging on about net zero. And I said, what about nuclear? And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. But then I said, well, what about small modular reactors? And they said, oh, they're about 20 years away. We now know they're closer to 10 years away.
They're a couple of years away, I've heard. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, I was saying to them, well, all these solar panels that you want, what about being able to recycle them? And they said, oh, well, that's at least 20 years away. So, I
think they're kidding themselves. We'll get Ian on that in a second. James, your take on the Financial Review.
Yeah.
Great newspaper, centre-left, on a lot of issues, editorial coming out saying, no, let's go nuclear.
I don't want to steal your thunder, but Greta Thunberg said in an interview that Germany made a big mistake by shutting down their nuclear reactors. Now, personally, I think the bigger mistake was allowing a Swedish teenager to dictate world energy policy. But 100 days after she said nuclear energy is a false solution, she now says start up those reactors. Now, you can imagine all her supporters had, and I don't mean to use a bad pun, but they all had a meltdown.
Very good. How long were you working on that one?
It took me all day. But here's the thing, reality comes at you fast. And with Germany facing a harsh winter, with no electricity to warm their homes, suddenly even the most ardent ideologues are having to face reality. And so the Financial Review article is perhaps an inkling that just maybe a few people in this country are starting to say, maybe we need to look at the world as it is rather than as we wish it was.